Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On today's show, we discuss James Gunn's reaction to misinformation on who Henry Cavill could be playing in the brand new DC Universe. He also confirms that he has had conversations with Henry about several characters he could play. Very, very exciting. It seems like Henry took his 30 pieces of silver and now he's been rewarded. We also discussed the uncertainty around Keanu Reeves' Constantine 2. We were sure it was happening. Keanu was sure it was happening. Now he's not so sure and confirms during the marketing for John Wick 4 that they're still trying to make a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. And finally, we discussed the reactions to Shazam! Fury of the Gods as the embargo is over and the reactions are positive. But I think the Black Adam reactions were somewhat positive, and we all know that that movie flopped. We'll get into it. But first, our main headline today to discuss that James Gunn has refuted the claims of one of the most awful DC platforms on the internet, home of DCEU. This is a platform that I think is connected to the Flash film news as well. You know, they're very pro Ezra Miller, and they've got a lot of bad takes and bad misleading information on the internet. So they were sure that Henry Cavill was playing a certain character in DC Universe. James Gunn said, no, I've already got the actor to play that character. I think it's either in Creature Commandos or in The Authority, but he said it ain't happening for that character with Henry Cavill. But there have been discussions with Henry Cavill for him to play a character in James and Peter's brand new DC Universe. The question is, who is he going to play? And how did all this materialise? Well, this materialised after James actually confirmed that Henry would no longer play Superman in DC. And in the new DC Universe timeline, they would be recasting the part. But this all comes to, as I just said earlier, about Henry taking his 30 pieces of silver. What do I mean about that? I made the claim on this very platform and on my Twitter at Movies TV Mad. You should definitely follow me on that platform as well. That Henry Cavill was very much aware when he came out and said he was back as Superman, that he wasn't back as Superman. It was a sham. It was a performance. He was being interviewed. He was lying. Warner Brothers Discovery were lying. All the social media outlets, that are all connected with Warner Brothers Discovery lied about Henry Cavill coming back. The Warner Brothers Pictures social media platform said, go and buy Man of Steel now, he's back. Imagine how desperate they were to uplift Black Adam. There is no question about that. I don't care what comes my way for saying this. Henry Cavill didn't have a contract to return as Superman. He got a one-off payment for doing a few seconds in a Black Adam post-credit scene. It's a brilliant Black Adam post-credit scene. It's as much as a farewell that Henry Cavill as Superman will ever get from WB, but he was obviously told to play ball and lie, then he would have a future in the new DC Universe. It's very, very similar to what happened with David Ayer during the marketing of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. You play ball, David, and your movie will get released. If you start being negative about this movie and putting out, other truth bombs, you don't get anything. And that's why, shockingly, David Ayer has become James Gunn's best bro, and James Gunn kind of being a very good bro to David Ayer. It's the way this industry works. It's a very political industry. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But make no mistake about this. Henry Cavill is in discussions to play another character in DC Universe because he played ball. He lied that he was coming back. Now, some of you are never ever going to accept this. Some of you will think that, Henry is an unwitting accomplice, that Henry is a victim in all of this. And he is. Everyone is a victim to, these big companies in the entertainment industry. Henry Cavill is powerless. Henry Cavill wanted to return as Superman. There's no question about that. Henry Cavill was fighting for years to return as Superman after they hacked his upper lip in Justice League and what they did to him. And even Walter Hamada didn't want him back as Superman. Who knows why? I think there is an element of racism because he's a British actor. Lots of people were opposed to Cavill playing Superman because he's a British actor. This is something this generation has an issue with. They don't understand the concept of acting. A British person can play a character who's lived in America since he was 1 or 2 years old, right? It's called acting. It's about performance-based situations. You're playing an entity that you're not. But people can't get their heads around it. So a lot of people never wanted Cavill as Superman. But what I've seen from the reaction of Cavill being deposed as Superman is one of disappointment, of negativity. Everyone was excited about him coming back. It was even the main headlines in the news at 10 in the UK, the BBC News, CNN, NBC, everywhere. It was big news. Everyone was excited. But it was all a lie to upscale Black Adam. And as far as I'm concerned, because I'm unbiased towards Henry, because I see things clearly. Even if I love something or love someone, I'm very, very unbiased. I'm not blind. I understand this industry. I know where the bodies are buried. And just by the way I talk, you can tell that. So I'm not blind to Henry Cavill. He didn't have a contract. He knew he was never getting a contract. He knew he wasn't coming back as Superman. And as far as I'm concerned, he lied, just like the rest of the studio, to upscale Black Adam. So now he gets his 30 pieces of silver. So is James Gunn telling the truth that him and Henry have discussed him playing, one of many, possibilities in the new DC universe as a new DC character? I believe this is true. I believe this will happen. I believe that Ben Affleck will direct the movie in DC Universe. As James has said, they've had discussions. I think it's a bit too obvious to say it's going to be the brave and the bold. That's certainly a possibility. I'm not sure. I think James may have kind of denied that's a possibility, but we'll have to wait and see. He may be directing something else. Shockingly, Ben may end up directing Superman Legacy. He could be directing The Authority. I think that would be a great project for Ben Affleck. So he could be directing something other than Batman, the Brave and the Bold, so be aware of that. But what he's doing here, he's getting very popular figures that were part of the DCEU and giving them positions in the new franchise. This is a very, very smart way of calming down the hatred. But the Snyderverse fans are going to be haunting James Gunn to the day he dies. It's as simple as that. He's not going to be left alone. Not because he's James Gunn, not because he's problematic, because he's not Zack Snyder. And that is the truth here. But despite of everything I've just said, I'm very happy and excited that Henry Cavill gets to play another DC character. And I've been playing the same guessing game as the rest of you. Who could Henry Cavill be playing in the new DC universe? Well, I did have a Batman theory, but obviously I knocked myself on the head because they wouldn't want a British actor playing Batman no more than they would want a British actor playing Superman. It's very clear to me that James Gunn doesn't want a British actor playing Superman either. They'll talk about representation and inclusion and anti-bigotry, but these are the most bigoted people in the world. The entertainment industry are still very, very bigoted and don't want a British actor playing a wholeheartedly American superhero It's as simple as that. Now, someone made a great point on the internet and kind of discussed maybe Henry playing Jor-El. Now, Henry Cavill is 38 years old. Now, it's okay for a 38, 39-year-old, approaching 40-year-old to play Jor-El. I can't remember how old Marlon Brando was when he played Jor-El. I think he must have been in his mid-40s, approaching 50s. I mean, I don't think he was that old. Obviously, he was older, but it's interesting. Could Henry Cavill play Jor-El in a new DC universe? Well, this works because what Tom Mankiewicz did when he rewrote the entirety of Superman the movie, he decided that everyone on Krypton would speak stilted Shakespearean English. So Henry Cavill can play that role. It would be perfect. The only thing that kind of discounts this is his age. So let's try and work out how old, Superman Legacies in the new DC universe Superman will be. I think he's got to be around 23 or 25. I think that's the youngest he would be. But there is a possibility that he could be 28 to 30 as well. That's still younger than Henry Cavill. I'm more talking about the age of the actor than the age of Superman himself. But I think the age of the actor will be the age of Superman in this new universe as well. So, is it really plausible for a, 39, 40-year-old playing, the father, of Superman? It probably isn't that plausible. You're looking around just, around probably 15 years, the difference. But, they could make him up to look older. It probably isn't going to happen. But I think because he's British and because he could, put on that Shakespearean kind of, persona, it would be a very good way of bringing Henry Cavill into the fold in the new DC universe. So probably unlikely he's actually playing Jor-El. But here's another one no one's spoken about. What if Henry Cavill plays Bizarro? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Now, Bizarro doesn't necessarily have to be the same age as Superman, and it would be a very interesting thing to do. He could also play General Zod, but I think we're all overdosed on General Zod at this point, so that's probably not going to happen either. Will he keep him in the Superman universe? I mean, again, he could play a younger version of Alfred. That would be very interesting, but it all depends how old Batman is as well. The younger Batman is, again, the age discrepancy would be interesting there. Again, very, very unlikely. I'm just saying it basically because he's British. So there are many, many characters that Henry Cavill will play and in this new DC universe. And I'm quite sure that, I don't know, I'm quite sure that they'll want to give him a lot of screen time, but maybe not, a hero. And that's actually an interesting question, isn't it? Can Henry Cavill play another superhero? And if he does play another superhero, who would that be? There are many, many characters in the DC universe that Henry Cavill could play, and especially superheroes in the DC universe. There are many characters he could play in the Green Lantern Corps. He could play one of the Elders. There's so many ways they could go here. But there's no question about it that Henry Cavill will play a role in DC Universe. Ben Affleck will be a director in DC Universe. Personally, I think this is a very clever thing to do. This is the multiverse. This is a new timeline. So you can have someone looking like the old timeline's previous Superman playing another character, another Kryptonian, another superhero. I think this is a very intelligent way to go at it from James Gunn. I'm very, very supportive. As I said yesterday, and I've said many times, the way they handled Henry Cavill as Superman was bad. The way they lied about bringing him back, and I've just stated that I believe that Henry was part of that lie as well. That's why he hasn't really spoken much about it ever since he announced he won't be playing Superman anymore. He seems very comfortable about the situation, and he's drawn a line in it because he's been given, as I say, his 30 pieces of silver, and he will play a brand new character in DC Universe. Why don't you comment in the comments down below and let me know who you think Henry Cavill is going to play in DC Universe? I don't know, to be honest. It could be absolutely anyone. There's certainly plans for him to be involved in the new universe. That's very exciting, but it's also a shame that he won't be in the Flash movie. They never had any plans for him to be in the Flash movie. There was some shitty, quick cameo when Barry's going through the Speed Force and you see him, a quick flash of him flying as Superman. It's a shit cameo. And it's not the same respect Batfleck gets in the entirety of the first act of the Flash movie before Barry changes the timeline and creates Flashpoint. So I've asked this question before. Why does Ben Affleck get to say a proper goodbye as his character and Henry Cavill doesn't? I think because Henry's British, he's difficult, he's very passionate about how these things play out, he's got an opinion. Actors who have opinions don't last very long in starring roles in Hollywood. People like Ben Affleck know how to play the game at the end of the day, and this is where we are there. Look, there's no question about that. And this is just the way it is. So I'm very, very excited to see who Henry Cavill plays. I think this is a great thing to do. I don't approve of, being lied to about Henry coming back as Superman, but it's done. As I said yesterday, people lie to survive. It happens. It's done. It's not a deal breaker for me. But let's see who Henry Cavill ends up playing in the brand new DC Universe. Now, let's talk about Constantine 2. Constantine 2 has swayed to and from like a tennis match. We've sometimes thought it was never going to happen, and it's something just that Keanu Reeves really wanted but wasn't sure and wasn't confident in happening. Then we heard it was definitely happening. Now, Keanu Reeves, during the marketing of John Wick 4, has said it was certain and now it's not. He says we're going to have to wait and see. So let me underline this. Keanu Reeves is no longer certain that Constantine 2 is happening. Now, I've been talking on this channel and on this platform very certain and confidently that Constantine 2 would happen. That's because I'm going off my sources and other articles. I believed it was going to happen. I believed before that it may not happen. So let's underline the issues which is putting Constantine 2 in doubt. First of all, the original leadership tapped J.J. Abrams as part of his lucrative deal with Warner Brothers to produce this movie. Why is that a problem? We already know that David Zaslav is not a bad robot and J.J. Abrams fan. He's already cancelled several of his projects, including a multitude of Justice League Dark projects for HBO Max, including Zatanna, including Black Constantine. Everything he was doing in DC is dead. The only thing that he's producing in DC that's still in active development is Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman of Color, his Black Clark Kent. I expect this to be done very, very soon. So anyway, so that's one of the issues. Zaslav is a micromanager. Make no mistake about that. And I like this about Zaslav. He's a micromanager. So when people say, oh, it's up to James Gunn whether Snyderverse goes on Netflix, blah, blah, blah. No, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The only person who makes any of these decisions is actually David Zaslav. Gunn and Safran are in charge of the new DC Universe timeline, and that's it. They're not in charge of the entirety of DC Studios and what's happening with DC. That's David Zaslav. So he's a micromanager. So here's reason number 2, Constantine 2 maybe won't happen and probably won't happen. It's because we've already seen from just a quarter of James Gunn's first announcement slate for Chapter 1 of Gods and Monsters in DC Universe that he's doing a Swamp Thing movie. This is his deep dive into the Justice League Dark universe for DC. So it's clear he wants to take a deep dive with Swamp Thing, that this is the first entry point to the Justice League Dark universe, and introducing his own Zatanna and his own Constantine. So it will be a big issue for James to have, a DC Elseworlds Constantine played by Keanu Reeves and having his own Justice League Dark version of Constantine and Zatanna in his DC universe. Now you're going to say, hang on a minute, Mick. There's like a Joker in DC Elseworlds. There was a Joker in Matt Reeves' The Batman. There's a Batman in DC Elseworlds. We're getting another Batman in Brave and the Bold. So why can't we have two Constantines? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Constantine isn't Batman. Can you afford to have two Constantines? Does that water down the effect of a potential Constantine in DC Universe? I think so. So I don't think you're going to have two versions of Justice League Dark characters, one in a Constantine 2, and another in James Gunn's deep dive of the same universe. As I say, with a Swamp Thing happening as part of this Gods and Monsters slate, we are getting into the universe. In that Gods and Monsters movie, expect Zatanna, expect Constantine, expect Solomon Grundy. So these things are going to happen. James Gunn is going to do his own version of this. This is one of many reasons that Zaslav knocked what Abrams was doing with Justice League Dark on the head. First of all, he doesn't like Abrams. He doesn't like the way he does things. So, yeah, J.J. Abrams being attached is a big problem. Also, one of J.J. Abrams' people will be directing this movie and probably writing this movie, at the very least, co-writing this movie. Something else that David Zaslav doesn't like. So whatever way you look at it, it is rather problematic for Constantine 2 to happen at this point in time. But of course, David Zaslav needs to raise $3 billion. And, Keanu Reeves is star power. It's the very situation I was talking about Michael B. Jordan. In his directorial debut in Creed 3, Michael B. Jordan has made a film that everybody loves, and it's part of a great franchise, and he's upscaled that franchise. Michael B. Jordan is a genius. Michael B. Jordan puts butts on seats. So I would, if you're asking my personal opinion, if it were me, and as a fan I'll say this straight off the boat, I'd rather see Michael B. Jordan's pitch for Static Shock and Val Zod rather than Keanu Reeves's Constantine 2. I'm not totally opposed to it happening. I love Keanu. I'd love his dream to come true for him to come back as Constantine. But at the end of the day, he's not a great Constantine. He doesn't act like Constantine. He was okay. The movie was solid. It was okay. I enjoy it when I watch it. I've seen it multiple times. I enjoy watching that movie. But I would rather see Michael B. Jordan's Static Shock and Val Zod rather than Keanu Reeves' Constantine 2. Now, another reason that probably Constantine 2 is in doubt, and don't forget that Keanu Reeves, as well during the marketing of John Wick 4, has confirmed that he's spoken to James Gunn. It's interesting that he said he's spoken to James Gunn. A few days later, he says that he's not so sure Constantine 2 is going to happen. Now, how can he sort this problem out? For example, we just earlier spoke about him, taking down Henry Cavill's Superman, but offering him another role in the brand new DC Universe timeline. Could he offer Keanu Reeves the same opportunity? I don't know, everyone, because I think Keanu Reeves pretty much only wants to play his version of Constantine. It's difficult. There's also another issue. James Gunn has made it absolutely clear that the quality levels on DC Elseworlds will be a lot higher than DC Universe. He's made that situation abundantly clear. So unless you're Todd Phillips, unless you're on the level of Matt Reeves and Todd Phillips, you ain't getting in. And there's no question about it. The people involved in Constantine 2, and I'm not talking about Keanu, I love Keanu, simply don't have the talent of a Matt Reeves or a Todd Phillips. And there lies the problem. And finally today, let's discuss the positive reactions to Shazam! Fury of the Gods. First of all, let me educate you about embargo lifts on reactions to movies. They have to be kind of positive in a way. If a movie's really bad, you may get some negative reactions. You do get negative reactions. They can be negative, but mostly they kind of highlight the positives of the movie. Let me give you an example from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. To keep it positive, they spoke about Kang, didn't speak about Scott Lang, didn't talk about Wasp or the daughter or the other poor elements of the movie. They stuck to Kang because Kang is the best thing about that movie. But I could see through what they were saying. And I quote tweeted many of those reactions saying, these boys and girls are going to give this film terrible reviews. And guess what? I was right yet again. They gave that movie terrible reviews. Now, this is very interesting for Shazam! Fury of the Gods. The reactions have complimented the film all throughout the board. So that's positive. That means they love the drama, the emotion, the comedy. You know, they're saying the dragon in Shazam! Fury of the Gods. There is a dragon. We've seen it in the trailer. I've heard lots of good things about the VFX. Again, a lot of the VFX in the DCEU has been so superior to the MCU. And, you know, we haven't had the problems at DC with VFX like they've had over at the MCU because they rush things over at the MCU. How many times have you heard about reshoots at DC and taking their time and postponing movies, trying to make them the best they can be? One person even saying the dragon in Shazam! Fury of the Gods has better VFX than the dragon in House of Dragons. Now don't forget, ultimately HBO shows have big budgets, but probably not as big as a big DC movie. Now this is something the internet are regressing to again. There's lots of regression on the internet. I didn't think the VFX for the dragons on House of Dragons was bad, but there you go. I'm no VFX expert, but I have a lot of good friends who do work in VFX, and, you know, I don't see the issue with House of Dragons and the VFX. But anyway, so basically throughout the board, Shazam! Fury of the Gods has got positive reactions. You know, they're talking about, you know, Jack Dylan Grazer again, you know, being one of the standouts, Rachel Ziegler being one of the standouts, and obviously Dame Helen Mirren being the best of the two villains. You'll find out what happens to her in the movie. They're not talking about Lucy Liu because there's a twist with her character by the end of that movie. It's very, very, very interesting. Most of you know a lot about this movie through leaks and spoilers. If you've been following me from the very beginning, since, you know, all the gossip about Shazam! Fury of the Gods was leaked, you know I did a video cataloguing what a very respected leaker on YouTube said about the movie, and everything he said is coming to pass. I'm sure you remember watching that video that I did. So there are no secrets here. I always said that Shazam! Fury of the Gods would be a pretty brilliant, wholesome, entertaining time at the cinema. But it's a movie that really doesn't interfere with James Gunn's and Peter Safran's plans. That tells you everything you want to know. But James Gunn has made it pretty clear that all the four leads of this year's movies, you know, have a chance to be involved in the new DC timeline. What he didn't say was if they're successful. But it's all about being successful. James Gunn would rather not use Zachary Levi's Shazam. He would rather not use Ezra Miller's The Flash. He would rather not use Jason Momoa's Aquaman, that's for sure. I do think that he would like to use the existing Blue Beetle because he's a fresh entry into the DCEU and he doesn't have the old baggage of the other actors and characters. So here's the thing. If Shazam! Fury of the Gods exceeds expectations, then maybe there's a chance. Now, if this movie was to hit 500 million, I think Warner Brothers would say, yeah, that we've got out of jail here. Because the last movie didn't even make 400 million. This movie is going to be available in China. Imagine if this movie made less than Black Adam, a movie that wasn't even available in China. It's very, very interesting. Don't forget, there hasn't been a successful DC movie in movie theatres for a few years now. We've spoken about this on multiple occasions, you know. Birds of Prey, The Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman 84, all flops. Black Adam, all flops. So, you know, I mean, look, I'm confident that Shazam! Fury of the Gods is a better structurally based movie than Black Adam. You know, David F. Sandberg is an incredible director. He's getting all the plaudits he deserves from these initial reactions. And I agree with these reactions, and I think it's good. My issue is this, that no matter how successful these reactions to Shazam! Fury of the Gods are, I still think this movie is going to struggle financially, and that's a shame. Why is that? For one reason and one reason only. The first movie didn't make under 400 million because it's a bad movie. People just don't care about Shazam. Shazam is a character who should turn up in other people's movies. People don't care about him. There are people who care about Captain Marvel. I was stunned to find out in the Elvis biopic that Elvis Presley was a big fan of Captain Marvel Jr. No, we're not talking about Marvel. We're talking about what Shazam used to be called in the comics. Captain Marvel Jr. And he dreamt about getting his dad out of prison. You know, amazing, amazing. I mean, I should really do a review of the Elvis movie because it absolutely fucking blew me away. But that's the problem with Shazam! Fury of the Gods. That's the problem Shazam! Fury of the Gods is going to have. That most people don't give a shit about it. That's why it's being projected to have a 40 million domestic weekend. I'm going to stick my head out and say it may even only make 35 million. As I said yesterday, near the end of yesterday's video, I said, sometimes I'm wrong. I want to be wrong about Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I want it to have a 100 million weekend. I want it to have a 50 million domestic weekend. I would love that, or 50 million plus. But the truth of the matter is, it's probably not going to happen. But let's see how it plays out. This has been Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wife. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Do I see you again? Goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.